Hey,
Hey, what's going on, brother?
good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's almost the weekend, so
I know.
one one day closer, man. Light at the end of the tunnel.
I know. Have you? I know at the beginning of the pandemic, people were like, "Oh, every day feels like Friday." But is that the case with you? Because still, even during the pandemic, the week felt like this one long Monday until we got to the weekend.
Yeah, you know what? In the beginning of it, I'd say last year when it first kicked off and things were nuts and people were having to go ahead and quarantine, it did feel like that. But I'd say around like maybe May, June, it just because what I do for my 9 to 5, it was consistent. I was kind of doing a pseudo work from home and then out in the field, so it still pertained to me. And then in the same breath, Fridays to me meant that I was going to be DJing that night. So it's kind of like Friday comes and I wasn't. I was just like, what the hell am I going to do with myself? You know? It's like the weekend's here and I'm not at no club or I'm not doing anything. So it's still an adjustment to get through to this day. So, hopefully these keep opening up.
I know. Do you like when do you think you might go back to having gigs and stuff like that, or is that still kind of up in the air?
It's still kind of up in the air. I know here in Illinois, the rules have been really more stricter with our governor and the mayor of the city of Chicago. So it's been a little bit difficult. I have friends of mine that are starting to do some events, but it's got a lot of regulations with it where it's like, obviously the X amount of people, you can't have full capacity. It's not open till, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. They're closing like at midnight. And when they do, you're kind of confined to your little area where it's a buddy of mine had posted a video. He was DJing and playing good music and he's jumping up and down, but then he does like a front shot view and everybody's just kind of off to the side and the dance floors is really scattered. It looks, for me, visually, it's weird because I feel like I'm not doing my job or I'm not rocking the crowd. They're just confined to their own space. So everybody's trying to work within that box and they're trying to figure it out. And they're hoping by the summer, maybe we'll see, maybe we'll get some summer events getting in. So, I mean, just keeping the fingers crossed.
I know as a performer, you feed off the crowds. So if you don't have a crowd, you're just like,
You don't know what the
you're
hell to
trying to
do. So
like push it, like, yeah.
yeah, like I seen him and he had another one of our friends film. So, he's doing his thing and he's going like that. And then they do the crowd shot and everybody's just kind of standing around and they're holding their drinks. And he's not doing a bad job, but it's one of those things where they can't really wild out and get too close to each other in the dance floor. So it's just awkward, it's just like looked a little bit awkward.
Wow. Well, thank you for joining me today. This is my first deep cuts of 2021. So
Oh, thank you
first,
for
you're the
having me.
first
I
guest
appreciate
back
it.
from a very long hiatus.
No, I'm glad that I was able to come out and, break the hiatus and dust off the deep cuts.
Yeah, definitely. You know, for those who haven't seen this deep cuts thing, so what I like to do with these is introduce people to different people that I know or people I've encountered online, and help people get to know these different people in the industry. And this I would say season, it'll be other people outside of just the industry as well. So it'll be a fun kind of get to know other people in other industries. And but I thought, when I was sitting around the other night thinking, I was waiting for that feeling to come back of like I'm ready to get back to do this, because I knew that when came back, I wanted to be able to just really charge through and do this regularly. So I said, I felt like you would be a great first guest, because I was thinking about you and I encounter each other at these different events and just the energy that you bring to these events, and how we never really have a chance to talk though at these events, because you're usually just sitting there busy trying to keep the vibe up, and I'm usually pulling in 10,000 different directions. So I guess as we're both waiting for the world to kind of open back up for real, this is like a great way to kind of touch base and say hello and get to know a little bit more about you and what you do.
No, you're right. You said it on the dot. I mean, especially with the trade shows get so crazy. I mean, between you getting pulled in 1,000 different directions, then I'm providing the soundtrack for the booth where I'm at. And then it's like, I'm there all day. People come up to me and they're like, oh my God, this is 6 hours of street mixing. Like, how the fuck do you do it? And I'm just like, I'm built, I mean, I'm built for this. I've been DJing since I was 14, 15 years old. And I'm feeling it and I'm going, but definitely at the end of that night, or let's just say at the end of the trade show day, I'm like drained, and then everybody's like, hey, we got this after party dinner. We got this other after get together. Do you want to come here? it's like I just want to eat something and just like lay down and let my back just kind of woosah, you know. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this because it's always a real quick, hey, what's up? How's it going? You go your way and I'm still doing my thing. So it's
Exactly.
gonna be great.
So I always like to start at the beginning. When for me the beginning is like, how did you, get into the music and the DJing, and what was your background? Because I know that you do other stuff other than just DJing. So what's the 411 on you, and how did you get involved in all this stuff?
Well, growing up musically as a kid, the influence between both my parents, my father was a super 60s, 70s soul person, everything from Earth, Wind, and Fire to Temptations to all over the spectrum. And then my mother was your Led Zeppelin and your Hendrix all the way to the 80s to your Blondie and your hip hop and your Curtis Blow and your Run DMCs and Al Cool J. So my home was just a home of always music, especially on Saturdays. My mom would put on music and play music. So when it came to the love for music, it was always there as a young child. And growing up, being very fortunate to grow up in Chicago, where our DJ scene is a great, awesome scene. Especially when I was a young kid growing up in the 80s and 90s with the Mix Master, the Hot Mix 5. These are crews that help create and cultivate house music. And it'd be one of those things where when my uncle would pull up his car every Friday night, we would all be out in the neighborhood, and then when the weather was nice, not in the winter, obviously here, but he would put he'd play these live, the mix masters would be mixing live on the radio, and people would go nuts. They'd be like, "Oh my God, that's my song! Oh my God!" And it was something, as I would sit there, I would be like, I would be like, man, I'm like, they're really like going nuts over this song that these guys are mixing and the blending and everything. So at the same time, the movie Juice comes out. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Juice, and you got them chopping it up, and he's mixing and scratching, doing his thing, and he's rocking crowds. And now we're at the point where hip hop's becoming more mainstream. And it was like all those worlds colliding, and I was like, man, I think that's what I want to do. Like, I mean, when you're in school and they ask you when you're young, I'm like, oh, I want to be a police officer, And as I got older, I was like, no, I'm going to be a DJ, And yeah, as time came on, I ended up gratefully, my mother was able to scrap up and get some pennies together, and she got me my first turntable set and said, here, she's like, this is your dream, go ahead and do it. She's like, just give it a shot. And she gave me the turntable. My uncle Robert had a whole collection of vinyl, which I still house a lot of it here, which is a lot of old school stuff, so I can mess with it. And I just started like that, man. I started doing things like that and practicing and getting into it. And the first party that I was able to rock, per se, if you want to call it rocking, was my cousin's birthday, and he said, hey, come mix my birthday party. It was a basement party. And if there's anything, especially with Latino families, I'll let you know the truth right off the bat. So, you had a couple that were like, oh, it's good. And I was like, this doesn't sound like the guy on the radios, It's like, shit, give me a chance. I'm just starting out. So that's how it was the beginning. It was just a strong musical influence from my family and me wanting to just be a DJ. Like I was real enamored with wanting to mix and hold it down. And not to get to the end of the story, but then it turned into doing live shows first. I was doing live shows for an artist that turned into nightclub gigs, and then that just kind of morphed and kept rolling down.
So what's your go-to, like, get the crowd hype song that you have to mix into your set for the night?
You know what? It's a real good question. It honestly depends on the crowd that's in front of me. So like, and I'll take this back to like doing TPE the last couple of years. Like if I'm on the trade show floor, it's hard to get because people are handling business, they're talking, they're catching up, maybe industry friends that haven't seen each other or cross paths in a while. So I try to just create a vibe. So there's different vibes I create. I'll kind of look what's going on. I might go to some old school rock, some 80s, some, a little bit of retro music. But then when I did the night life thing at Sierra, in their nightclub area, I was able to toss and kick started off with some Pitbull. Pitbull always get the crowd going. That's an up-tempo. All his music's up-tempo with house samples. So I'll get something where it's a little Pitbull going. And then if I want to get into old school hip hop and kick the party off with some old school hip hop, you can never go wrong with some classic LL Cool J, some, Eric B. and Rakim, and a little bit of that. So it varies. I never had that one song where I'm like, this is what's gonna, because I mean, you could play Little John's To the Window to the Wall to get low. That's always gonna make people go to the window, and they'll do the dances and stuff. But I kind of feed off and see what's in front of me. You know what I mean? Whoever's in front of me, I just kind of see what kind of vibe they got. And then I have those songs in my mind at that moment. I'm like, this is going to get them going.
So how did you get hooked up with the Drew Estate world?
So for the Drew Estate world, there's a lot of moving pieces there. So JD loves the city of Chicago, comes here, does a lot of events. He does his UF4 release party every year for Halloween at Casa Monte Cristo. Shout out to Sam and Mike and the whole family at Casa. Every October, he does his UF4 release events. And I'd always go and hang out, chop it up. You know, I've known JD going on 6 years and some change, maybe 7 now. And they would have a DJ that was there, and he would always complain about the music. And he knew musically from following me online and us bullshitting that I had a background in DJing. But I never wanted to be that guy where I'm like, hey, let me be your DJ. Let me DJ this for you. I'm like, I've always been an organic person. Just let it happen organically.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben Pearson, who was the Midwest rep for Drew Estate, was like, man, we were at the Kentucky Bar Smoker. I was talking with him and Fabian, formerly of Drew Estate. And they were like, man, how come we don't have you do the UF4 events? In my mind, I'm like, that's what I've been saying the whole time. Like, yeah, I think it'll be cool. You try to play it cool. So they're like, we're going to talk and we're going to run it. And JD's like, you know what? I mean, we've talked a lot. I haven't been able to see you mix. So the UF4 releases your test. And if you pass my test, you're going to see what I have in store for you. And I said, cool. And I tell you, man, I was shitting bricks because I'm like, the night before, I'm like at the butterflies, the day of, I'm like, I got to make sure I have this and I got to dig in my bag. Now, talking with JD, I've known his love for hip hop and 80s B-boy style of music. I'm like, I know in Drew Estates, is a big hip hop heavy. So yeah, at the UF4 release party, JD, the event was supposed to end at 10 o'clock. We were there past midnight. Gary,
Wow.
his dad, is going nuts dancing. I mean, the whole place is rocking. Sam, the owners of Casa, were like, man, we've never thought of how having it. And again, I just like my girl Erica said here in the comments, there's no clout chasing. I'm like, just let it come to me. I just want to let it organically happen. And after it was done, JD and I had a quick powwow, and he's like, stay tuned. And he's like, just stay tuned. So next thing you know, I get a call from Fabian, and he calls me just before Christmas, man. And he's like, hey, we got a trade show coming with TPE. And in my mind, I'm like, okay. He said, we're looking to have you DJ. It's the first time we're doing a Barn Smoker experience. And the reason we want to have you kick this off is because we want to make you the Barn Smoker DJ. But you can't say nothing because what we're looking at is doing the Barn Smoker 2.0 with all these different activations. And one activation is you being the DJ to celebrate Acid's 20th anniversary. Now, some full circle shit. Acid was the first cigar that I smoked, the Blondie back in 08, the Cold Infusion, my favorite. So and that's how I got so into Drew Estate cigars, and I grew from there to the Undercrowns, the Liga Privada, the Nika Rusticas.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, so he gives me the details. I tell you, man, I hung up that phone and I cried. I'm a grown man, but I cried like a baby. My wife was like, oh my God. I'm like, talk about full circle, to be able to kick off the Barn Smokers and then to be told, and we want to make you the official. So start out as official Acid 20th DJ. And it was, man, it just hit me in my feelings, man. It was just something that I wanted to do and wanted to be a part of, and somehow take two passions. I love cigar smoking and I love DJing. And to be able to merge them together, I have to tell you, I am the luckiest man in the world to be able to take both worlds and bring them in. And that's how it kicked off, man. I ended up doing TPE, was my first trade show with them, which morphed into a couple other trade shows for them, which brought in the Barn Smokers. And then the Barn Smokers became a big beast, and everybody was loving it. They were asking, we hope this is going to be done next year, and stuff like that. And then they became special events for some of their one-off in-store events. I was DJing for them. So that's how I landed with Drew Estate. So like I said, there's a couple moving pieces there, but, it's a great foundation to have, and I've been enjoying it, man. It's been a blast.
So what is that creative process like for you working with Drew Estate? Because I know that they are a very creative company, but I also know that they have they know who they are. So they have a very strict business sense as well. So I'm sure, you're kind of providing an extension of the brand and who they are. So what's it like kind of working within that kind of environment?
It's a great environment. It's everybody knows that Drew Estate is the disruptors in the industry. The rebirth of the cigars. They're the ones that at the trade shows, without me, before I even stepped in the scene to do music for them, they had the loudspeakers playing, the music playing. It's hip hop to its core, New York, Brooklyn, rugged, in your face, you know what I mean? So like they've always been that personality, which I felt that was my personality. Like I have Eli and I have DJ Eli, which was originally go by with Eli, and which I could turn on. So it's like it fit my personality and it just clashed great. And my love for hip hop and their love for hip hop, but they're not just hip hop on that. I mean, there's everybody Drew Estate, as you can see, there's, as we call it, all the characters. There's a bunch of different characters, you know, and it just kind of was a perfect relationship that just kind of mellowed and meshed in. So yeah, the atmosphere around them is real awesome, and it just I'm able to feed off of them. We almost like freakishly think alike when it comes to situations with the marketing team. We'll be on the same wavelengths. And yeah, it's a real unique environment that I'm happy to be a part of, and it's great. So my thought process getting into it, it's like it's second nature. You know, the last time I got nervous is like I told you when JD said, "Hey, I'm putting you to the fucking test," you know, for the UF4 event. And this became second nature once I knew. I'm like, man, and it just feels like home. You know what I mean? Like I've had other people come up to me, other manufacturers and people, and still they'll say, "Hey, would you be interested?" And I'm like, no, you know, not that I'm like contractually locked in, but I'm like, I know who's family, I know who takes care of me, who I'm a part of. So it naturally fits. That puzzle piece, it just fits right in.
So you talked about the cigar part because I think in your profile you say you're the smoking DJ. So talk about that a little bit more, because I don't think people always know that connection. So it's not like you said, it's not like they just found you and you just are just doing DJing for this random company, but you're actually a big part of the industry. You're as a consumer and now as an extension of Drew Estate. But just talk about where this love of cigars came from and how it's developed over the years, I guess.
So yeah, so like you go to my profile, the Cigar Smoking DJ. You know, most DJs, I have buddies of mine that might dabble and smoke here and there, but I'm really involved in it. I mean, I worked at a shop part time for a little bit of time, and I've been smoking, like I said, since 2008. And cigars to me, it's always been, it's a rite of passage. It's something that gives you the break away from the crazy day. It's something that after a gig, I would light up a cigar. You know, these guys would be like, this freaking guy and his cigars, or this guy and that cigar, they go smoke their cigarettes or their cigar weeds or whatever. And I'm like, nah, I literally cut me a Robusto, light it up. All right, guys, I'm out here, smoke on the way home to reset after a whole night of being up and got to get in the crowd going. So yeah, and my knowledge so a lot of the guys in the DJ industry or music world that dabble here and there, I get so many messages all the time for advice on what to smoke and what should I smoke and have you tried this and I seen you smoke this, and to this day I learn every day. I feel like you're always a student. So yeah, I was able to merge like I said earlier, my passion for DJing and my passion for smoking, and I've always been a huge fan of cigars. They just, to me, again, like I said, lighting up a cigar is like an experience there's no other to explain. It's literally like a vacation, whether that cigar takes you 30 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes. It's a getaway. You're able to light it up, smoke it, and have appreciation. And when you're able to visit these factories, I think when I was able to go to La Gran Fabrica in Nicaragua, in Esteli, my appreciation was already here, but it went like here, because I got to see them face to face making it, and it's a pure handmade product. And my earliest memory of cigars was my grandmother in Puerto Rico smoking a cigar. My great grandmother, I should say. God rest her soul. She would roll her own every morning, light it up, and she'd be dusting and cleaning. And she had an old school house with an old school little outhouse in the back, and she washed clothes the old school way. And she always had that big thing, and my father's like, yeah, that's a cigar, and she'd roll them herself. And my earliest memory was like, man, that's interesting. That's something I would like. I never smoked cigarettes, never done anything else, and I just hop head straight right to cigars.
Somebody asked, have you ever had a conflict in schedule? And so how do you choose, which one do you choose, the residency or the event? So
that's a good, you got some good ones. See, I know, Erica, you got some good, you know what? I try my best to try not to mix both. So I'll tell you a quick little story. I stopped doing private events. Private events meaning your weddings, your sweet 16s, your corporate events that they would have for like holiday parties, because those book so far in advance. Now, DE could come last minute and they could say, hey, we decided we're going to have to do this theme, whatever show or whatever pop-up, we need you this date. Now, that's going to take precedent because I'll be honest, I'm more excited to go do that than hang out at one of those other private type events. When it comes to club stuff, the club stuff, my residency is gonna always be there. You know, I could it's just like a regular day at a job where you say, hey, you know, unfortunately, I got a little schedule conflict. I'm real great with the one club owner that I'm real good friends with, that I've been having a residency for the last 5-6 years, where I could just say, hey, this weekend I'm going to be out. So even when I was doing TPE, when I was doing Drew State events, I was their resident, but I gave them ample notice and said, hey, this date, can you follow up, find a backup, or I could find a backup for you. Shout out to Sean and Kay. I know their son checked in here earlier, Benny. They're, like I said, like family. So I always would choose the cigar event first, I guess you could say. Long story long, because I know my residency is going to be there, but I have eliminated doing private events because those book so long, and they're contracts too, where you get contractually committed to a wedding, and I don't want to come to a bride and say, hey, I know you booked this last year in February, now it's May and your wedding's here, and I can't do it because I got to go out of town. So to eliminate a lot of that, I ended up just pulling a cord, and I stopped doing private events.
What's been the wildest event that you've played so far?
Cigar related or just general? Is just in general DJ?
Just general.
In general, I would say touring. Touring was, man, I could be here with touring stories forever. I was very fortunate to be part of a record label called $1 Billion Ballers Entertainment, and I DJed for a gentleman by the name of Mars. And I was able to tour with Paul Wall, Tech Nine, open up shows for 50 and Snoop, Game. The list goes on. Same with reggaeton artists out of Puerto Rico. Joel and Randy did a stint of their Midwest shows at House of Blues. So I'd say overall, my favorites were doing the concerts, because concerts as a whole nother level. My best memory have to be Minnesota at the Rave. It was a venue called the Rave. That place was so awesome. The staff was so cool, and they were packed wall to wall. People still waited outside, even though they couldn't get tickets, and they were still hanging out just to catch a vibe from the outside. And yeah, that was the Rave is one of my favorites, just out pure crowd reaction, because I'm sure you've been at concerts. I know you love music a lot as well, and when you have an artist that could just point at you while he's singing or she's singing, and you feel something, and then to be the person to do that to somebody, and that's the best feeling ever, being on tour and you just interact. I always would pick a couple people out in the crowd and just interact directly with them and let them know, hey, like, thank you for purchasing this ticket. Thank you for rocking out with us. And if you want, I'm going to be at the merch table if you want to take pictures and do autographs and all that kind of cool shit. So my favorite memories come from touring, live, doing live shows. Live shows is just completely different. You got a completely different animal. Every city's different. Every environment's different. But the Rave, Minnesota, is to this day one of my favorite shows, which is one of the posters I have actually in the back of my office here. Yeah, Minnesota was a great crowd, great hip hop crowd.
Now, when you as a DJ, do you feel the pressure to kind of stay abreast of, like, I guess like the popular songs now and work those in somehow to your sets? Or do you kind of do you have your own kind of set of music and you're like, this is what I am as a DJ or artist, I'm going to stay here? I ask that because I know, I was watching Wendy Williams a couple months ago, and she was talking about Spinderella, and she was talking about, well, she needs to learn how to mix in some other music to her set. She's like, she only wants to play like these old school things, and like the young people these days, they want to listen to some younger stuff. So it was like, but she's like, and then the DJ on her show was saying, well, that's how she is. I mean, that's her thing. Like her doing updated music, which probably wouldn't make sense. It's not her thing. So do you feel that kind of pressure too, to kind of stay abreast of like all the the hipper songs of now, or do you just kind of say, this is my area, I'm gonna stay here?
The thing is as a DJ, one of the biggest things is you're a crate chaser. Crate chasers are people that will go crate digging for records. And obviously, as times change, it was digging for CDs, and now it's digitally. So I like finding gems, and I was very, very fortunate to break records for Jason Derulo here in Chicago, to break records for forgetting Jeremiah as well. Jeremiah, a local guy here. And I was cool. It was cool to be able to find a record that you knew was hot, no one hasn't heard, and eager. You get so eager to get to the nightclub, be like, oh, I got this on deck. I can't wait to play it, because I know these guys, because there are DJs that get stuck in their box And I've always, like I said, I've always been a fan of crate digging through the crates to finding that either cut that you never heard of or the latest cut. So I try to stay up to date with what's going on and what's playing. Do a lot of it I vibe with, not a whole lot, but that's again musically for me. A lot of the music sounds, some of the hip hop nowadays sounds the same. I don't knock it because the crowd, like I said, the crowd that I'm playing in front of could be a younger crowd and they could be feeling it. You know, there's songs that my youngest son would come up to me and he'd be like, "Oh, Dad, this is this rapper," and I'm like, "What the hell is he saying?" You know, when I was at his age, I was listening, you know, to your Bone Thugs and Harmony and your NWAs and all those guys in the '90s, where it was music with content, where music lately doesn't have content. So I don't really pigeonhole myself. I try to play it all, and as an open format DJ, you have to stay on top of your game. And now that DJs are a dime a dozen, you really have to stay on top of your game. You're gonna have your specialty, like I said, which my specialty is gonna always be reggaeton, hip hop, and some old school, where that's where I love to really mix into. But I'll dabble in other stuff too, and I'll try to stay current with other things going on. Now, Spinderella's case, I'm sure, you know, she's a chick from the '80s, and you know, she's one of the baddest to ever do it and still do it. But she knows that music more and dealt with that music more and didn't probably had to be put in a position, like I said, where I first started coming up, I was doing private events. You know, I could do an event, a wedding, let's say, for an all Latino family, or I could do a Sweet 16 for an African American family, or I could do just a bar mitzvah for a Jewish family. So they're not going to all listen to the same type of stuff, but they're going to pay you well, and you want to be able to rock the crowd. So I was very fortunate to be able to be introduced to a lot of genres and dabble in so many genres. If I open up my laptop and show you all the crates I have, the way I meticulously break them down, it's all over the place. So I'm open to play it all.
Do you think, because you talked about like the crate digging, and you and I are both into vinyls. The thing about vinyls is like it's not an MP3, so you have to go through a lot of work to skip a track, you know, and it makes you listen to the whole album usually, because you're just like, I'm not gonna, even if it's a song you don't like, you're like, I'm not gonna get up and pick up the needle to drop it somewhere else and all this other stuff. So do you think like this digital world that we're living in now, where it seems like a lot of artists are almost abandoning the whole idea of an album and just going for singles and, you know, a hit. And that's kind of changing. I guess that kind of makes, I don't know if it makes DJing even any easier or any harder, but it's just completely different, because there used to be an artist would want you to listen to the whole album, and now they just want you to listen to a particular song, so that they make it, and then they put together, and then they'll release all these different single, you know, tracks for like months, and maybe later on they'll say, okay, now here's an album, and it'll be like half of those songs that you've already listened to for, you know, throughout the year, and then some new stuff that doesn't really fit at all with it.
That's true. To me, the last era that made albums, I want to say 90s, but to me, 70s, your rock bands and your 80s bands made albums. An album was from track 1 to track 12, 13, or whatever. Every song was a banger. Like, that took you on a journey. Like, everything was a single. You could, like, and that's why for a vinyl, you didn't have to start playing and moving the needle and jumping it to see which spot you wanted to go to. You were going to sit down, enjoy that ride, drop that needle, hear the crackle and pop, and listen to that whole album. And then I know in the mid-turn later on in music, it turned when we were getting CDs, I noticed that drop off where it was all about the single. Like, let's get the single pop. And that's how we started getting one-hit wonders, more one-hit wonders, I should say. Because they just, they would put together a whole album, but it was one or two, maybe three if they were lucky, singles that kind of hit, and the rest of the album were skippable, and you could just go skip. But these guys, when they were making vinyl, and in that time, it was an album. These guys sat in recording studios for days on end, you know, months on end, rented homes and were together. I don't know if you ever see the movie Queen. Like, it would, you know, they would rent those homes and lock each other with each other all in that house to write music and create music. And now, you know, songs are done so fast, they come in so hot and then they're gone. And I think the live shelf of songs now is even shorter. You know, it become popular on TikTok and it's a dance and it's hot for a month or two and then the next one comes. So there's no time for that song to marinate. So then when they do drop their album, they're like, shit, let me see if I can stretch this out. And like you were saying earlier, add these 4 or 5 songs and the rest is whatever. So music is not made the way it is before, especially now that record labels are not making the amount of money they were making before because of digital sales and because of streaming. So now it's like, let's get that one song really hot, get all those plays, and let's, you know, do whatever we can to make the most money out of it, you know, get all the publishing dollars out of it versus, hey, I want to sit here. And these essentially record labels are big banks. So instead of them dumping all this money into you to produce a whole album, to get a whole A&R team behind you, marketing team, all that stuff, they'll dump X amount of $1,000 on a single, you know, and then run with it and try to make all that money off that one single versus putting all those dollars up front for that album, hoping that it hits and it doesn't flop.
Now, somebody who's really into the music scene, do you go after, like, is there a certain format of the music that you go after? Like, do you go after a vinyl still? Because I know a lot of the artists have shifted over because they are making money, I think some money from vinyls, and they are upping the price of the vinyl to like, you know, $30 or $40 just for the vinyl. Or do you just not pay attention to the vinyl stuff, and are you just going after that digital track?
You know, I go after the digital track since I play things digitally. I do pick up a vinyl here and there if it draws my interest, and I'm like, oh, look at that. That's something cool to have. Like Sam Smith had a cool little double setup. I'm trying to think who else did I grab. I grabbed so much crap. I can't remember right now. But I think when it comes to that setup, right now, the younger generation is in a retro phase. Like I seen baggy jeans are coming back out. I mean, the other day I was with my wife at H&M, and H&M selling Lee jeans. I remember wearing Lee jeans to school, and I would get made fun of. Like, that was, what are you doing wearing Lee jeans? Hey, those are Lee's jeans, you know? And now it's coming back with a more baggy feel, the chunkier shoes, and this love for vinyl. So I think it's cool that artists are jumping on that, and that's something that you can obviously digitally replicate. And one thing that I personally miss from albums and CDs at that was opening a booklet and seeing everything.
I know.
And looking, the artwork,
the lyrics.
Dude, I used to open those up, and that's how I would get DJ drops. I would find out like who was their marketing person or who was their sale, whoever, or A&R, and I would shoot hundreds of email. Never got a bunch of responses back, but based off of looking at that. And now digitally, I hop on Spotify, hit play. You know nothing. You just know the artist is playing. You have no appreciation for the engineer, the producer, the master. That's all those pieces that come together. Netflix got a great series with a guy, and I forgot what it's called. But he breaks down songs. Like he had the guy from 9 Inch Nails, and he had on Dua Lipa, where he takes the one song and they talk about it from the beginning to the end. And I thought that was so cool because they take you into what was going on during the production phase. And like Dua Lipa in particular, she had 2 songwriters for this particular song that they did for her. And she talked about how it took her weeks to get it done. They're recording in England and this and that. And it shows you other people how that comes together. Now, I know we're in an era, which I still call the Vine era, which is 3 seconds, I'm in and I'm out. So kids today might not care. Like, I don't care who put this together. But me as a music enthusiast, like, it's cool to find out, oh, that guy that engineered this also engineered that, who also was a producer of this, who produced that. And that's how, like, Jimmy Iovine, before he became a big monster with Interscope, he was doing stuff with all these rock bands in the 70s and played a behind the scenes role. So to me, I've always been a sucker for a backstory. So when it comes to vinyl, it depends. I mean, it depends what I grab. Like I said, a lot of my music I deal with now is digitally, and I do have Spotify, which I listen to stuff on the fly. But if there's a vinyl that's out there that catches my eye, I go ahead and I grab it. You know, I have to grab it just out of principle.
Does price matter to you? I'm saying because like there's some vinyls that I guess were in print back in the day, and now they're completely out of print, and they hike up the price of that. Like, would you pay $300 for a vinyl?
You know what? Depending where you live, you could find an old retro vinyl shop. Hell, you could go to thrift stores and find old vinyl there. So it's better to take your chances there. I get it, because I saw, what album was it? It was Michael Jackson's Thriller at not FYE, but there's like a store that's like similar to FYE that sells trinkets, music, and other random stuff. And I looked at it. It might have been Urban Outfitters. So we walked in, and I was like, "Oh shit, they got a dope vinyl collection." And I go look.
Urban Outfitters.
I think it was. It could have been. I know we're just like mall crawling. And I looked, and I'm like, it would look like I have the Thriller album. It looked just like it, and it had everything in it. But then you look at the bottom, and it says, 1980 whatever, and it says like 2020. And it's like, and then they're gonna charge you, like you said, $30-$35. And that's a vinyl that was given to me that was purchased maybe for $12-$14. Mm-hmm. And it's like not the real deal. Like, I'll pay the extra money for some old vinyl. I would go out there and say, oh man, that's a rare one. It's a hard one to find. Okay, cool. Then I'll flip the dollar. But for something that's a reprint, I'm not a fan of you charging that much for a reprint. Now you're just price gouging.
So I know that you have started doing your own podcast. What's that been
Yes.
like? And what
It
is for those who haven't seen it, what's it about?
So yes, my wife and I, shout out to my wife Angelica, we decided to go ahead and start a podcast called Bonafide Bullshit the Podcast. You guys can follow it on Instagram at BONAFIDE_BS. So that's just bonafide_BS. And we post all our updates on there, little videos and tidbits. But it's been an awesome experience. Her and I, it all kind of started off of like, we're always looking for things to do with each other. She's real big into the workout world, and I'm real big into the cigar world. So like I was real big into the music world, and she was real big into the creative world. So even though we're on separate paths, we always try to find something that we could do together as a couple. And we always, like, a lot of my videos, if you ever saw when I do Instagram stories, I am not shitting. I'm looking everybody in the eyes right now here on Instagram Live, here on Deep Cuts, letting you know we don't stage nothing. If I'm able to grab my phone in time to record, it's just funny shit. My kids are both fucking hilarious. They're two clowns. And then my wife, like, it's just natural shit that happens, and I'm able to catch on camera. So when we get all this feedback, like, oh my God, you guys are funny. Oh my God, you guys have this. And at the same token, I would get hit up about advice. They'd be like, oh my God, you guys are like the perfect couple. No, far from near the perfect couple. We have our trials and tribulations. I have my positives and negatives. Same with her. There's shit that goes on, and what the thing is we love each other and we work through it together. So we said, fuck it, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I actually started a cigar podcast that I never fully promoted and put it all out there because of scheduling. And she's like, man, we should do one. I said, you know what? I already started the groundwork signing up. I'm just going to reflip it and let's do one together. And so every week what we do is every Wednesdays we release a new episode on all the favorite podcast platforms as well as on YouTube. And we talk about different topics. I mean, it'll cover stuff from family, from life, sex, current events, whatever's going on. We're there to bullshit. And lately we've been getting flooded with people's questions. They're hitting our inbox that want our 2 cents on things. So it's been fun, man, to do something with your best friend, your wife, to kind of it's kind of letting some steam off too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just getting shit off our chest. You had a whole thing on e-learning that e-learning was a fucking pain to deal with. And I'm sure every other parent felt the same way doing it at home. And it was kind of a vent session that just kind of has been morphed into something that's been real awesome. And I've been real happy to do it with her. And people are enjoying it. The feedback's been real great. We just clipped over 1,000 downloads. And
wow.
Yeah, man, it's been crazy to something that's so small, and it's still small, but to be able to go ahead and put that out there in the atmosphere and bullshit with people. It's been a real fun podcast.
What kind of questions have people sent you?
Dude, I've been getting everything from, like, if I break up with my significant other, how soon can I hook up with somebody? all the way to I have 2 boys. I see you guys have 2 boys. How do you deal with them when they're hitting puberty? All the way to love life questions, whether it's in the bedroom or just in general in love. Like, a couple episodes back, we were talking about a movie called The Love Dare. It's something that kind of reinstills parents, husband and wife's love for each other by doing small things. And you talk in love languages. Like, what's your love language? You know what I mean? Is it when you give me something, or is it when you do something? Like, as funny as it is, and I thought this was like fucking crazy. Like, my wife's like, man, you fucking throw a load of laundry in, or you wash the dishes for me. Oh my God, I'll do whatever you want from you the rest of the day. But I'm like, you mean you don't want the tennis bracelet, or you don't want the shirt? It's like, no, like, it's the simplest thing. That's her language. It's just me taking initiative of something in the house that she would typically do, and I just do it, and vice versa. One time she's come up to me and bought me a 5-pack of cigars. Came home and picked 5 cigars that she knew I kind of liked, and I was like, oh shit. She's like, here you go, random as hell. So yeah, those are the type of questions we get, and we try to answer what people got going on. But there's been some crazy ones, man. They've been funny, and they're cool to talk about.
That love language book is really, it's interesting. I'm listening to that one, the audio book version of that. So it makes you kind of sit there and think like, oh wow, like, yeah, that's why I get mad at this person, because they're not speaking my language. Like, they might think, like, in a work context, like, oh, you want more money. And I was like, I might not. I might just want, dedicated time or something like that. So
yeah, you don't know. And, a lot of it's communication. And I'll tell you, man, when we first got in our relationship, I sucked at communicating. Because, you know, growing up with a real stern father, it was like, you don't show emotion, you don't do whatever, you're the man, and you just kind of, that gets instilled. And even though in your mind, you're like, I'm not going to do that, but subconsciously, you show signs of it. And just being able to communicate instead of just either assuming, or you go ahead and you just say, I don't want to fight that fight. Or, you know what, I got to pick and choose my battles. I hate when people say, I got to pick and choose my battles. You're both in a war together. Every day is a war. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of you guys could, at the end of the day, be together in the same bunker. So yeah, it's interesting to see. And a lot of it comes down to communication, just letting someone know how you feel, and sharing something, and then knowing if that's something they like, then you go ahead and do more of it, and you show them how you appreciate them. And it doesn't have to be. And there might be people's love languages is materialistic. It might be like, oh, I love when you buy me flowers every week. You know, and it's like, cool, that's their thing. Everyone has their own thing. But if you find that niche and you find what they got going on and you appreciate them, they appreciate you right back.
I'm glad somebody else has read that book, because I felt like the only other person who knew that book was kind of like my mom. She was like, oh yeah, I kind of heard that, heard about that back in the 90s or something like that. And I was like, yeah.
Well, it started out with Love Dare. I don't know if you ever heard of Love Dare. So Love
No.
Dare, it was the oldest son on, is it Growing Pains? He's real into doing Christian movies and
Oh, okay, Kirk Cameron.
yeah, Kirk Cameron. So he did, and yeah, it started out with that, which I think the movie was called Fireproof or something like that, is what the movie, but it was based, and then in the movie they're talking about doing the book, The Love Dares, where, because they were having some issues going on in the relationship, and it just kind of reinstilled things to do, and it was little tasks for you to do. And we actually did that back in 08, 09 was when we ended up reading the book, and then we actually followed the tasks that were in the book. And I think that made us stronger than ever. And it continues to this day, where we still try to do things that we learned from that book, and then love languages, and you find all these other ones, and you're always on the hunt. Like I said, I'm always learning. I love to keep getting educated.
Do you read biographies of like different music personalities? Are you into that kind of books, or or is that not your thing?
You know what? It was my thing when I was younger, and then I got real big into documentaries. Like, one of my most recent favorite documentaries was Who Killed Sam Cooke. That was something that, Sam Cooke was a legend in his time, and what he did as the first African American artist to be in, homes and people to see. And so I get real big into documentaries. Like, what was it VH1 used to have, Behind the Scenes? What was it called,
Yeah,
or something? Behind the music.
That was like that was like the best. You would sit there just like for an hour and just be immersed in.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God,
stories.
it all makes sense. And lately, I've been getting into a couple of, I don't know if you're familiar with the reggaeton genre of music. There's been a couple, like there was an artist when reggaeton first started getting real big in the early 2000s, a guy named Hector El Father, and who even had to deal with Rockefeller, with Jay-Z. And now he's real in the church, but I just recently saw his, which was real interesting to see, like, oh, now I know when he had this song, what that was about, and what he was going through when he couldn't leave the street life, but then he was trying to be famous, and his home was falling apart, and now he found God. So yeah, I get real big into the biography when they're documentaries. Documentaries is what I've switched up to. But I used to rap back about 10, 15 years ago. I would pick up book ones and read them and get immersed and see what they had going on. Like I said, I'm always a sucker for a backstory.
I know you mentioned Debbie Harry and Blondie earlier, so she released the one. It was kind of like a photo book / biography last year, so that might be one that you might want to check out, because I've been listening to the audio version of that, and I think it's free on Apple Music. At one point it was, and you really get to learn how crazy her life. I mean, I haven't even gotten to the Blondie years yet, so I'm sure it'll get even crazier, but
wow,
just her background is so wild. And the other great one is the Mariah Carey one that she wrote last year, The Meaning of Mariah. You kind of think of Mariah Carey as this really, butterflies and rainbows type person, but you learn that she had a really screwed up upbringing.
See, that's the type of.
It's just like when you read it, you're like, wow, and you kind of understand why she's into the Christmas thing, and you understand why she's you understand the glitter era, and she talks about the record labels and how her relationships with them have changed over the years, and Tommy Mottola and all that. So if you really like the music industry and the biography and stuff, that's one that will definitely, I think, be of interest. It's not what you think. Like I said, you kind of go into it thinking Mariah Carey butterflies and kitty stuff, and it's like,
And All I
Not
Want
at
for
all.
Christmas and the holding the high notes.
Uh,
No, I got, thanks for telling me that because that missed my radar. I love to check both out, especially Debbie Harry, man, because she had her hands dipped in so much where there was doing stuff with Fab Five Freddy and doing stuff
mhm.
with Dondi White and, the New York punk scene, graffiti scene. Like, I would love to I'm going to check hers out. I'm definitely going to give Mariah Carey's a spin. I know my wife's a huge fan of Mariah Carey. Back in the day, I was obviously too, especially when she broke that mold and collaborated with Bone Thugs and Harmony. It was like, and with Styles P, like she was always ahead of it and doing her thing. And I think you're right. Everybody sees the attitude side of her and all that other stuff, but there's everybody has a backstory. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna have
but
to
some of the stuff
check them
that you
out.
mentioned kind of reminds me of what she was talking about in the book, thinking outside the genres. And she talked about the art of the album and how that's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit now, and how, all the challenges, and how she was, always kind of very attracted to the whole R&B world before it was big. And, she talks about this famous dinner party that she was at with her then husband, Tommy Mottola, and how somebody asked, like, what do you think about, R&B and hip hop and stuff? And he wanted her to say, like, it was nothing, it was trash, because he wanted her to be like this gospel type singer. And that's not what she wanted to do. And she said, I think R&B and hip hop is going to be the future. That's where everything it is. So you read that kind of stuff and you look at her catalog of music, especially kind of after she left Columbia, and you're like, oh, that's why she went completely left field from what she started off as. It was like the early albums were never really her thing, but it's really interesting. It's like, so I'm always interested in learning the creative process as well, having to work in a creative space. So
No, I appreciate you putting me onto that. I'm gonna have to check it out. Like I said, Mariah Carey was definitely a force, still is a force in the industry. She has a very unique voice. And like, yeah, I mean, like I said, collaborating with artists you would have never thought of back then to say, oh, Mariah Carey's getting together with Bone Thugs and Harmony. Well, Mariah Carey's doing something with Styles P from the Locks. It's like, and she thought ahead of the game. And Ty Mottola is he was an old dude in that industry who liked the old guard, which is like, sometimes the old guard just has to move over. You can't be scared of growth. You can't be scared of change. I've always been a person to embrace change. Change is always for the better, never for the worse. So that's cool. I'm gonna have to check her out.
so in terms of cigars, getting back to that a little bit to kind of close out today, we got 9 minutes or so. I see that you smoke a lot of stuff, like even outside the Drew Estate world. So like,
Yeah.
what do you kind of look for when you're trying out a new cigar? Is it just something that you kind of see and see in a humidor and you say, let me give it a try? Or is there some method to the madness?
Well, it's funny because sometimes some of my buddies blow me shit because they'd be like, well, oh, you're not smoking a Drew Estate cigar, but you're smoking an affiliate. Someone that, and I'm like, well, yeah, I'm like, that's the fam. You know what I mean? Whether it's like a Crown Heads or Aroma Craft or, uh, Room 101, which is one of my other favorites. Yeah, I Dunbar and Trust with Saka, like, and it's everybody who either had a collaboration cigar with Drew Estate or had a thumbprint in Drew Estate's format. But when it comes to me lately, you know what, man? I've been on a boutique kick. I get put on by a lot of stuff by Brian Hassan from Pravada Club.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually was able to fortunate to join that club with the little monthly cigar of the month club. And what I liked about his is he's curated a bunch of every month he curates cigars that are just have a unique story or a unique band on the cigar. And so when I just look for something that's a little bit unique, or I'll check out the little story on it, or if it's got like when they did the Elmo with the little Elmo looking face on it, and you find out that it came out of a factory out of the Dominican Republic that's similar to Davidoff, which I'm pretty sure might be from Davidoff. But you start finding out those backstories. It's kind of cool. So when I go in a shop, I have my go-tos that I'm gonna smoke, and I look for what's I'll take a gander and see if there's something that's out there that's new. You know what I mean? Like I said, again, more boutique. I've been more on a boutique kick lately. So yeah, there's been a couple of good boutique brands that are out there. Platina, which is local here to Chicago, which is a good brand, man. That's a real good cigar at a good price point. So I look for some of those small ones. If I'm not smoking one of the big boys, I mean, from Drew Estate or anyone coming below. Even, I mean, I could say Room 101, but Room 101 is to me, even though it's boutique eyes, Matt's famous and he's out there and people love him. Crown Heads too, John and that whole team make a bunch of good fucking sticks. And so either I'll look for certain shops that might carry certain lines from those brands that I mentioned, Or like I said, I'll look for something to see. I'll talk to the local tobacconist there if I know him and I'm in a good rapport with him. Because I know some tobacconists might not be their fault. Whoever owns their shop, their B&M, might want them to push a certain facing. Because I've been in that steps. That's what made me want to leave the shop that I was at. It was like, well, you got to push this facing. And I'm like, well, I'm not behind that sticker. I don't think it's that great. Well, no, push it because I got to sell the box of it.
No.
So I'll get their opinion, be like, hey, man, what do you got that's, man, try this. We just got this. It has Corojo binder. It has Nicaraguan fillers with, this. And so I'm all over the spectrum when it comes to, I look for something that pops on a band maybe to me and say, man, they took time to do this dope ass artwork on this band. Again, going back to album artwork, like I was a sucker for that. Let me give it a try. And there's been a couple of dog rockets that you can say that I'm like, one dimensional, or some that I'm like, man, I got to revisit this. Oh, what do you mean this is the only box they're not making another because they're so small?
Yeah, what do you feel about I was looking at something on Instagram today, and they were, one person had a question of like, what are things in the industry that you not like? And one of the things that somebody responded to was like all these limited edition stuff that's coming out. Like it's coming out and it's like limited. And it's like so limiting because then you rush out to get it thinking that it's like that psychs you out, makes you think like, oh, if it's limited, I have to have it.
I'm going to tell you
better
something.
Than anything else.
I'm going to tell you something right now that I noticed. And I'm announcing it here. And it's something that it's been on my radar for a while. And I was actually waiting to hop on one of Amy and Erica's clubhouses because we all have like little vent sessions about the industry, where the industry's at, where's it going. Will McFall and Jack here do a good Thursday night at Clubhouse. And we talk about from influencers to everything. But where I was getting at is right now, I feel a little bit the cigar industry when it comes to limited stuff is turning into like the sneaker game. I was a big sneakerhead until now you got guys with sneaker bot computers and they're able to buy everything out and then resell the sneaker at quadruple its price. Sunday morning, I was waiting to get the new Bad Bunny Adidas. Didn't get a chance to get them. I go open up another webpage. A guy selling them for $800, which is a $150 sneaker. So I've been seeing that happen lately with the cigars where it's like, well, this is limited only so much. Before it was already, they only made so many boxes because there's only so much leaf, so much tobacco, so much Connecticut broadleaf that all these guys could get. So they're already limited to X amount of thousand boxes, but now you're going to do this one-off and people go chasing for it. And over quarantine, I noticed a big jump in cigar smokers. There are a lot of those driving forces behind purchasing because now they're like, oh, I'm new to this. So that's limited. I got to get it because it's limited. It's like, man, I could probably give you something that's a regular production that probably outsmokes that. No, but this is limited. I'm like, man, I'm a sucker for limited edition shit. The background stuff, I got limited Funko Pops, limited figures, limited edition. My wife always makes fun of me. All you have to put limited edition on and you buy it. When it comes to figures, I do that. When it comes to cigars, it's like, I know I can find other ones where I can't find other figures. So to me, I'm a 50-50 with it. I get it. You know what I mean? You do want to make something rare and small, but then you're also creating this havoc around people trying to chase it and then buy it and then resell it. You see Smokin', shout outs to Abe. He does a great job with his team. And they do their releases when they're getting certain limited cigars. But then everybody's blowing up the website. And then you see guys that don't smoke trying to resell it. When I first started smoking and this being in this industry, I had guys giving me $5 cigars and guys having me $50 cigars without even charging me because it's a brotherhood. And now you got a guy, I know the other day they were moaning on one of the group pages about some guy, he came across a couple H99s and he's selling them for $45 a pop. And it's like, and they're like, well, how can you do this to your fellow BOTL and your SOTLs and and it's like, because they got something to gain from it. Me, if I had it, I had extra. There's guys that you could talk to that I know that I've just sent them a bomb, which is, a package of cigar. They're like, hey, you got this? I'm like, hey, man, try this. Recently, I sent a buddy of mine an Acid 5. They don't make Acid 5s no more. He was like, dude, how are you getting that? And it wasn't shit for me. I wasn't going to be like, hey, yeah, I got an Acid 5, real limited, but I'm going to charge you $200. And I see that type of stuff, and it's kind of phony, but I get it. Cigars manufacturers want to go ahead and they want to do their limited releases or their yearly releases. Like Drew Estate just did Year of the Ox, which is an awesome, phenomenal smoke, but it's only for overseas. But people were able to buy it. So I like limited in that form, where you could able to at least be able to maybe get it. Yeah, you're going to pay a little bit extra on shipping, but hey. But I think I'm cool with limited cigars. I'm just not cool with the folks that might scoop them up and buy them up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the same for video games. It's like Nintendo did this whole, Mario 35 anniversary thing, and they said that, at the end of March, none of these titles are going to be available anymore. And they were talking about it online the other day about how this game that's $59, online or was $59 online and in the physical copy in stores, there are scalpers out there trying to sell it for like
Dad,
$1,000.
you got kids during the holidays, PlayStation 5. I play PlayStation when I get a chance, when I do. But it's like, man, I want a PlayStation 5. And then I see somebody that I know doesn't game, doesn't play, but was very fortunate to either get one real quick online or hop in a store and pick one up. And then talking about, I'm going to hold a raffle here on Facebook Live, and it's $25 buy-in, 20 people. And it's like, oh my God, I'm all for someone's hustle, but at a certain level. Like, be realistic. When it comes to gaming, like Nintendo, I remember going through the drama with the Switch when quarantine hit. Thankfully, I just got ours, but I wanted to get another one for my oldest, and people were price gouging on used Nintendo Switches because everybody wanted to play the Switch at home. And it's like, I don't know. We're living a funny time where everybody wants to get one over everybody. It's like, I'm not bullshitting you. If I got it, I'd be like, hey, I'll sell it to you what I got it for. I'm a horrible bargainer, and I'm not going to try to gouge you, but I guess call me crazy or call me unique. That's just the way I operate.
So in the last couple minutes before we get cut off, I want to make sure we have enough time for you to give all the plugs to your social media, to how people can follow you, how they can listen to your podcast. So just give us the whole spiel.
All right. So for you guys that want to follow me here on Instagram, my personal page, Smoking E, that's going to be SMKNE. You're going to go ahead, and if you guys want to rock out with the podcast that I do with my wife, like I said, it's Bonafide Bullshit, the podcast. You can follow that page as well at bonafide_BS. You can see we like an underscore for some reason. You got Smoking_E and bonafide_BS. We have a YouTube channel. I have a personal YouTube channel that people could check into, which is just youtube.com/DJ Eli. And there you're going to see an array of cigar reviews. You're going to see stuff from just general reviews of items all the way to when music videos that I was a part of, my touring videos are on there. And in turn, if you want to get into the podcast's YouTube page, just going to have to look up Bonafide Bullshit, the podcast on YouTube. Would come right up. Make sure you guys subscribe. Check us out there. You could also find me on Facebook, just facebook.com/DJ Eli. But I try to stay more current on Instagram. I have a Twitter too as well, at twitter.com/DJ Eli. But I would say I'm more Instagram heavy, active on here. So again, you can just, for everybody who's tuning into this, I appreciate you guys letting me into your device, wherever you're watching this on, and you can just follow me at Smoking E, SMKN_E. I have a tap my bio link in there that it just open up everything. So in case you have to pause or rewind, you click that tap my bio link, everything's going to be in there wherever you can find anything I got my hands in social media wise.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on today. Like I said, and being the first one of 2021 to do this. So it was fun getting to kind of finally have a conversation with you without a trade show going on around us and loudness and stuff going on. So
no, I appreciate you even considering me. I'm glad I was able to break in the new season for this year. So I appreciate you even considering me, giving me this opportunity to chat with you here. I look forward to eventually catching up with you in person again when we can see one another and bullshit a little bit further, if time permits, as we say, because I know things get crazy. We'll have to carve out some time, and we'll have to do this again, man. I really appreciate you reaching out, and this has been a blast, man. I've had a blast. You had some great questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I look forward to our next encounter, whenever that is.
All right. Appreciate it, brother. Thanks again. You have a great rest of your day.
You too.